Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, it is I, 2Athemar7, about to begin the second video in the Hikari route of A Sky Full of Stars. At the end of the last route, having watched quite a bit of material that was common to both Sai and Hikari's routes, very quickly, we confessed to Hikari, and she, in a rather surprising fashion, rejected us. So we are going to continue from where that left off, and we shall do so right at this moment. The sound echoed down the empty hallway as I slapped my hand against the wall. The wall slap used to be a pretty popular thing. Originating from a girls' comics, it's where a guy corners a girl against the wall, throws his hands up to block her escape, and speaks some cheesy line. I'd always thought it looked corny and embarrassing, but now that Hikari Hikari trapped against the wall, I think I understood its appeal. It's actually quite effective. At such close range, the girl can't run away or play dumb and pretend she didn't hear you. I like you, Hikari. Go out with me. Hikari answered bluntly as she diverted those eyes from mine. Just then, a couple of girls from the culture club came around the corner. I didn't know the girls, but they kept stealing glances our way as they passed us and disappeared around the corner. Hikari looked back at me. Her eyes didn't express shyness, however, they were full of resentment. Ouch! I grabbed the shin Hikari had kicked and started hopping around in pain. Hikari left without another word and took off for a room full of people. Damn, screwed it up again. I'd been shot down a few days ago, but that hadn't discouraged me from trying again. I would have never confessed in the first place if I hadn't thought I could endure this. I was trying my hardest to get Hikari to see me. Nowhere. As soon as I entered the room, Hikari slipped behind Saya to get away from me. That's nothing? I didn't think so. That sounded just like a grrr. She had all her guards up. After being confessed to and having to counter my attacks so many times, she looked more wary than a stray cat on the street. My confession today had been my fourth. The second time hadn't been so good either. Ba-doom, ba-doom. I could hear the music coming from Hikari's earphones. She even had her eyes closed as if saying, "Don't bother me, I'm listening to my music." Hikari, I can hear your music. You should probably turn it down a little. I pulled one side out and leaned over to whisper in her ear. I like you. And the third time maybe had even been worse. There she is. Go do your thing, Kotaro. You're back. How'd it go, buddy? I unfolded the piece of paper Kotaro had in his mouth. I hate you. I'd taken every chance I could find and tried a few different methods, but Hikari had shot them all down. Aside from my complete failures at winning over Hikari, however, Project Starlight was proceeding smoothly. Saya waved me over to take a look at her laptop. Wow. Sugoi. On the screen was a brand new Project Starlight homepage. We decided to set up a special homepage to generate outside interest and help spread the word. It had a synopsis of the event, descriptions of what the Six Stars Club was doing, and introductions for all of our members. Everyone was agreed that she had done a good job. The design was really great. Saya had made it, after all. After discussing website design ideas and with Hanukkah and the others, she made a design, got pictures from Toyota, and asked Saisen for some drawings. She got input from everyone and turned it into a great-looking site. Saya had always been good at drawing pictures, so she had a knack for this sort of thing. Once we had announced Project Starlight to the public, there would be no turning back. The site even had a timeline of club activities. Each school was going to hand out flyers in their individual areas. By inviting the general public, we were planning for a considerably large event. It really does look great, Saya. It looks like a professional could have made it. Hikari was right. People's confidence in our abilities would depend on how well our site was put together. It was like the way words can be taken so differently when spoken by different people. It didn't really feel fair, but I suppose if you're trying to get somebody's attention, you have to put in the extra effort to do it right. Apparently she had to go help out with the comic again today. It's still a bit early, but should we call it a day? There's nothing else we need to get done, so... When she heard the name of the shop, Hikari glanced my way. Hikari was talking a mile a minute as she threw her things in her bag and raced out the door. It was Saturday. It was early afternoon on our day off, and the voices of our group rang out in front of Mikazaki Station. Our website was live and our PR preparations were complete, so we'd moved on to our next step, handing out flyers. First, we had to tell people who we were and what the goal of our project was. Our flyers had an explanation of the upcoming Gemini meteor shower and a request for everyone to turn off their lights on its peak night. We were gathering together to go from one school neighborhood to another to hand out the flyers. We decided people would be more at ease taking flyers from students in the local school uniform, but mixing in others would draw more attention.
12月14日、大流星群の夜は電気を消そう。何なんだこれ。
て言葉をご存知ですか？ここを見てください。
Mikasaki Station wasn't a very large one, but that made us a rare sight. It was causing more people to stop and talk to us. We would show them the figures and illustrations on our flyers and politely explain what our goal was.
なるほどね。そういえば昔に比べて星の数が少なくなった気がするね。
でしょ？双子座流星群の夜、一つでも多くの流星を見るために皆さんに部屋の明かりを消してほしいんです。どうかご協力お願いします。
The man Hikari had been speaking with took a flyer and walked away.
ありがとうございます。ありがとうございます。思ったよりちゃんと話を聞いてもらえてるね。そうですね。知らない人に声をかけるのはちょっとドキドキしますけど。吉岡ちゃん、しっかり明るく朗らかに。ほら、笑って笑って。こうでしょうか。笑顔が硬い。
Hey everyone! As I approached, Hikari quickly moved away from me to hide behind Saya. I got permission to set out some flyers at the store.
本当ですか。助かります。
I don't know how much it will help, but a lot of the people in the area use our store. It was a small town and there weren't many stores. Ours was open from early morning until late, so many people in the area used it. We even had a cafe corner, which meant a lot of the middle-aged and older folks would stop by in the afternoon. It would be good exposure. The store manager knew some other business owners who said they'd put up flyers as well. I'd even gotten permission to hang one out at the station.
では、そろそろ移動しましょうか。少し休憩してからにしませんか？
Judging from Toyota's voice, he sounded exhausted. Our next stop was the shopping district near Maiku Academy, but Toyota and the other first years weren't used to this kind of work and were clearly tired.
そうですね。少し早いですが、お昼にしましょうか。
In that case, you're all welcome to use the store's eating area. Not everyone had brought their own lunches with them. That meant that they would buy something at the store, so using the seats wouldn't be a problem.
では、お昼休憩にしましょう。
As soon as Hanukkah was finished speaking, Hikari disappeared off in the opposite direction to avoid me. I decided to stay outside and was sipping on some milk coffee by myself. This hurts. Hikari was avoiding me at every turn. I was hoping to get the chance to approach her again today, but it seemed like she was getting wise to my methods. I would have to start switching things up a bit. Recently, it might have seemed more like I was trying to shock her rather than trying to confess to her. I guess it was pretty embarrassing. And when it was to somebody you had thoughts of as a best friend for so long, it just made it that much more difficult. But if I couldn't honestly express my feelings, she would never take me seriously.
アキト君、中に入らないの
？Saya noticed me standing by myself and had come to check on me. Not right now. I must not have been able to keep the disappointment out of my voice.
光がいるから。
Uh-oh, she'd hit the nail right on the head.
ねえ、光と何かあった。
Why would you think that?
この間から光、アキト君のことを避けてるみたいだから。
It looked like my secret was out. It wasn't a surprise, though. Hikari was making it pretty obvious. Though she probably thought she was being smooth about it. To tell the truth, I confessed to her. As I said this, I glanced over cautiously to see what Saya's reaction would be. I figured she might get teary-eyed or flustered, but instead she looked completely unfazed.
そうだったんだ。
You don't seem surprised.
うん。だって、あっくんが光のこと好きなの知ってたもん。
Really? How?
見てたらわかるよ。
She said it like the entire world had already known. Had I really been that obvious?
光はなんて
I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen a few times, and showed it to her.
交際のご希望をいただいた件ですが、厳正なる審査の結果、落選とさせていただきました。この度はご縁がなかったということで、誠に申し訳ございませんが、お断り申し上げます。ケーグ。ケーグって。
I'd received this message the day after my first confession. It was rather confusing, and I couldn't get why it sounded like I'd lost an election. She'd probably thought too much about it and rewritten her response over and over so many times that it had turned into something strange.
そっか。やっと言えたんだね。
Saya knelt down to pet Kotaru as she said this to herself. Kotaru looked content, lounging in the sun. I said it again. I like Hikari. That means that we can't...
わかった。
You seem awfully calm about this.
だって、ずっと前から気づいてたから。
Was it really that obvious? I only myself had just realized how I felt about her after she moved back to Japan. But Saya made it sound like she'd known for even longer than that.
どうだったかな。
Why was she teasing me all of a sudden?
悲しくないわけじゃないけど、ずいぶん時間があったから、気持ちの整理はだいたいついてるつもり。それに私、あっくんと同じくらい、光のことも好きだもん。光とあっくん、お似合いだと思うよ。
Thanks, though she still rejected me. A total of 4 times, in fact. Saya let out a sigh.
光にも困ったものね。ほんと、いつまでも子供なんだから。
Saya stopped petting Kotaru and stood up.
はい、これお弁当。アキトくんの分だよ。
Are you sure it's okay?
作ってくれたのお母さんだもん。でも、もうあんまりこういうことしない方がいいのかな。
I didn't know what to say to that, so I just remained silent. I wondered if you could have said something more comforting. I had been an adult with experience dealing with things like love. Saya reacted to my speechlessness by letting out a small chuckle.
はあ、やっぱり私、男の子に生まれたかったな。
Saya actually sounded a little relieved as she said this. Then, as she turned and headed back inside with all the others, I gratefully began shoveling the lunch Saya's mom had made for me into my empty stomach. Saya's mom's eggs are always so good. We could really use your help to make Project Starlight a success.
お願いします。
After lunch, we'd moved to the shopping district near Micro Academy to hand out flyers. We'd moved around a few times to the areas with the most people finally heading to the school. Just like Mikazaki Station, it seemed the people were interested in what a group of students from a mix of schools were doing together. Though coming to the school on the weekend meant that only the students who had club activities were here, it was a little disappointing.
学校で配るなら別の日にした方が良かったですね。
It seemed like an obvious oversight once we were there. We'd chosen our day off because it was easier for everyone to meet, but it seemed like we hadn't thought it all the way through. It seemed like an obvious mistake in retrospect, but it was our first time doing this. Other oversights were bound to occur as well. Let's come back to hand out flyers at school on a weekday.
はい。
Once it started getting later, however, the number of students heading home from club activities began to increase. We started handing out more flyers than we expected.
天文部です。よろしくお願いします。します。
We're running out of flyers.
それなら今、ひかりさんがプリントしに行ってくれてます。
I hadn't even realized she was gone until Hanuka had said something.
なんだか、スラミ君を避けているようでしたが、喧嘩でもしたんですか？
No, it's nothing like that. Sorry. It seemed like the others were worried about us. I felt bad, so I started working even harder at passing out flyers.
なんなのよあいつ。油断するとすぐ好きだとか言い始めるし、気を抜く暇もないわ。おかげで肩が凝っちゃって。光、なんださやか。びっくりした。私も手伝うよ。ありがとう。でももう終わるし。ねえ、アキトくんのこと避けてる？何のことかな。気のせいよ。そんなわけないじゃん。やだな。私のことはいいから、さやはアキトんとこ行っといでよ。どうして？もっと猛烈アピールしまくらないと。あいつ奥手だからさ。ちょっと大胆なくらいがいいと思うよ。ほら、キスした時みたいな。私もアシストをするからさ。そういうのいらないかな。なんでよ。だって、アキトくんが好きなのは別の人だもん。そんなことは。あるよ。だって、アキトくんが言ってたから。告白されたんでしょ？そんな顔しないでよ。私、ずっと前から知ってたから。あっくんの気持ち。違うの。それはあいつが勘違いしてるだけで。っていうか、さやが可愛すぎるからビビってんのよ。多分気にすることないからね。そういう光はどうなの？私？あっくんのことどう思ってるの？どうも何も、きっぱり断ってやったわよ。私に気を使ってるんじゃなくて？違う。アキトはただの友達。いいやつだとは思うよ。だよね。ぶっきらぼうだけど優しいし。ちょっと子供っぽいとこあるけど、そこが可愛かったりするし。そう。ご飯の差し入れとかすると本当に美味しそうに食べてくれるんだよ。いいよね、そういうとこ。それから星を見てる時の横顔が素敵なんだ。ワクワクしててザ少年の目って感じがする。わかる。いいよね、あの目。いや、今のはただの一般論で、きっとさやはあいつのそういうところを好きになったんだろうなーって話で。ねえひかり、昔私がアキトくんのことを好きになっちゃった時、相談に乗ってくれたよね。あの時のお返しがしたいの。もしひかりもアキトくんのこと好きなんだったら、光の恋を応援したい。恋って、何その恥ずかしいワード。私には似合わないから。どうして？光可愛いよ。もうさやに言われたって嫌味でしかないの。あんたみたいにおしとやかじゃないし可愛くないし。っていうか、私のことはいいから、あんたが頑張りなさい。ほら、とっととアキトんとこ行って、あいつの目を覚まさせてやって。そう。じゃあいいわ。なんで怒るの？別に、怒ってなんてないわ、ほうき星さん。名字で呼んだ？ 6 年ぶりくらいに名字で呼ばれた。何でも話せる友達だって思ってたの私だけだったんだね。やだ、怒んないでよ天の川さん。名字で呼んだ。自分が先に呼んだんでしょ。 知らない。それはこっちのセリフよ。シシ、アキトんとこ行っちまえ。べーった。
Huh? My phone went off, letting me know that I had a new message. I pulled it out and looked at the screen.
ちょっと来て。
This is a pretty blunt message for Saya. The message was only 2 words long, but I could still tell that Saya was unhappy about something. The last I knew, she was on her way to find Hikari and lend her a hand. Hey, I'll be right back, you guys.
はい、
Corona, would you take the rest of my flyers?
わかった。
I had a really bad feeling I made my way to the school building. I wonder what happened. I didn't know what to expect as I headed down toward the astronomy club room. Being a weekend, there wasn't a soul anywhere in sight. The sun was sitting low in the sky and was casting long, deep shadows across the hallways. As I approached the room, Hikari appeared from the doorway.
出た。
From the moment she saw me, it was as if she'd entered a state ready for battle. Hey, do you know where Saya is?
天の川さんなら。
Amanagawa?
アキトくん。
Saya came out from the room behind Hikari. She rushed over to me and paused just long enough to whisper something so only I could hear.
ちょっとだけ我慢しててね。
ん？
疲れちゃったよ。
Saya's voice suddenly sounded soft and sweet as she threw her arms around me. What? Saya, what are you doing?
今日はいっぱい歩いて疲れちゃったから、ちょっと休ませて。
As she continued to cling to me, she began to lean her full body weight into me. I had no choice but to grab her to keep her from falling. My nose was suddenly filled with her scent. It was probably the shampoo that she used. This is... Saya, what are you doing? I began to protest in a soft voice as Saya began to sway, her arms still wrapped around me. What was going on? Had my confession to Hikari sparked some last flame of jealousy?
アキトくん、じっとしてて。
But Hikari is looking at me like she wants to kill me.
そう、なら成功ね。光が素直になるよう手伝ってあげる。
Now I understood what she was doing. This seemed like a bad way of going about it, though. Hikari glared at me as she walked by without a word. Hikari, wait!
邪魔しちゃ悪いから先に行くわ。じゃあね、天の川さん、空見くん。
My full name? She hadn't used it in over 6 years. Hikari sped off down the hall and out of sight.
ごめん。本当に光とのこと手伝ってあげようと思ったの。
I appreciate the sentiment, but I think I should figure this one out on my own. It seemed that my 2 childhood friends were both catastrophically terrible at helping others with matters of love. Hikari had stormed off, clearly angry. It wasn't an ideal situation, but if Hikari's reaction had been due to jealousy, then that actually was a good thing for me. I couldn't be certain she was just plain angry, though.
もう暗くなりますし、そろそろ解散しましょうか。
I agree.
皆さん、本日はお疲れ様でした。双子座流星群までまだ余裕があります。地道に頑張って。
お疲れ様でした。お疲れ様でした。
お疲れ様です。お疲れ様でした。
Everyone would be splitting up and heading in different directions from here. It would be faster for everyone from Motors Misawa and Nishai High to use a different station than Mikazaki.
私、別のバスで帰るね。
Sai seemed a little down as she said this. She made her way to the bus station in the opposite direction from me. I decided it would be a bad idea to just make contact with Hikari just then. Is she going to be alright?
ひなみん、ちょっとだけ待っててもらっていい？部室寄ってから帰るから。うん、いい よ。
It sounded like it would be a little while before Hinami and Corona headed home. That left Hikari as the only person heading to the same bus stop as me. Hikari set off toward the bus stop at a brisk pace, pretending I wasn't even there. I wanted to explain what had happened inside, but I didn't think she was going to let me. Instead, I decided to let her anger subside a little. I followed after her, but left plenty of space between us. The bus was nearly empty, and I took a seat in the very back. Hikari sat a few seats ahead of me and made a point of not looking in my direction. She's pretty upset. It wasn't the uncommon for her and Saya to get into fights over silly little things. Before long, they were usually back to normal, as if nothing had happened in the first place. I figured it was best to just leave it alone. Right now, I was more worried about her being angry with me. I pulled out my phone and sent her a quick text. Can you give me a chance to explain? Hikari must have felt her phone vibrate because she took it out to check it. As she looked at it for a couple seconds, thinking before she shoved it back in her pocket. Completely ignored. It seemed like I would need to wait for a better time to try and explain everything. If I kept pushing, it might just make things worse. It was probably best just to give up for today and reflect on the day's event by myself. The bus headed out to Old Mikazaki Village, driving along at a leisurely pace. Before I realized it, my eyes grew heavy and I must have fallen asleep. Handing out flyers all day had been tiring work. I guess the motions of the bus were just too much, and I lost the wave to drowsiness. I felt something move next to me. Somebody must have sat down next to me after I had nodded off. I considered scooting over a bit, but I was still half asleep, and the thought of moving was just too much of a hassle.
私のこと好きって言ったくせにさやに抱きつかれてデレデレしちゃってさ。
I was suddenly wide awake. Now that my brain was working, it seemed odd that somebody I didn't know would sit next to me on a bus that was virtually empty. I opened my eyes just a hair and saw an Amahai, skirt and long hair tied back in a ponytail. Hikari was sitting next to me. What was she doing?
私に告白しといて。やっぱりさやの方がいいんじゃない。デレデレしたアホ面を思い出すとまた腹立ってきた。
Huh? Something soft was pressed up against my arm. Was Hikari locking arms with mine? It seemed like Hikari had slipped her arm through mine and was clinging to it. Whatever was pressing against my arm was so incredibly soft that it actually made me uncomfortable seat cushion feel even harder. But I couldn't tell what was happening. I was still pretending to be asleep.
さやも何勘違いしてるんだか。私別にこいつのことなんとも思ってないもん。こうしててもほら全然ドキドキしないし。
Hikari leaned over and whispered like this, tickling my ear with her breath. As she leaned in closer, pressing further up against me. The soft feeling against my arm became a bit firmer, and I could feel Hikari's heartbeat. It was racing a mile a minute. Hikari was staring intently at my face. Had she realized I was faking?
起きてないわよね。
She continued staring at my face, clearly suspicious.
かわいい直しちゃってな。
She began poking my face, and the bridge of my nose began to itch. I was trying really hard to resist the urge to scratch it. If she realized I was awake, there was no doubt this perfect moment would come to an end. Not only was she touching my face, but her arm was interlocked with mine. I wanted to make this moment last as long as possible.
ねえ、なんで私に告白なんてするのよ。あんたはさやの好きな男の子なの？なのに私に告白された
This was bad. Huh? I suddenly choked on my breath and sat bolt upright in my seat. My body had reacted instinctively to the tickle on my side, and when my eyes flew open, they met Hickory's. Hickory was suddenly completely speechless. Her face began to grow bright red.
起きてたんだ。聞いてたんだ。
She began to tremble. It was probably in shock, seeing as how our arms were still locked together.
家帰って悶絶死する
Hickory tried to stand up and get away, but I grabbed her arm to stop her. There was no way I was letting her go just yet.
話して
Wait, I just woke up. I didn't even hear much.
どこから聞いてたの
Something about me being all over Sai, and then so I said I liked you.
やっぱり帰って死ぬ死なせて
I understand how you feel, but please just calm down. As I was trying to calm Hickory down, I looked around and realized that we were the only ones left on the bus. So that was a relief. Just let me apologize for earlier. I'm sorry for how many times I may have looked when Saya grabbed me.
全然許すっていうかあんたは私のことなんか忘れてサヤと付き合えばいいの
How many times do I have to tell you Saya isn't the one I like?
だってキスしたじゃんサヤとキスしたってことはもう結婚しなきゃダメなのわかる
What are you, 8?
だからもう私に告白なんかしてこないで迷惑だから
I was still holding Hickory's arm, so I pulled her toward me. Without anything to support herself, she fell forward toward me. I caught her in my arms and whispered in her ear. Fine then, this will be the last time. I'm not going to say this again, so listen very carefully. I'm not joking around when I say this. I truly do like you, Hickory. With that, my final confession, I lowered my head and kissed her. For an instant, Hickory tried to get away, but in her current position, all she could do was try and sit up, and that just pushed her further into my kiss. And thanks to that, I was able to fully savor the feeling of her lips on mine. They were incredibly soft. I pressed my hand onto her back and held her loosely as I pressed my lips harder against hers. I felt Hickory's body slowly begin to relax. Her eyes had gone wide in shock at first, but her eyelids slowly drooped. She looked as if she were in a dream. I was already in that dream. Kissing the girl I liked, I was lost in a feeling of euphoria. The feeling I got from her lips on mine was a complete bliss. The weight of her body against mine felt good too. I continued to hold her, stroking the long hair that fell down on her back. I was thoroughly enjoying our kiss. I finally came to my senses and realized that her eyes were locked at point-blank range. She was staring up at me, a questioning look on her face. Thinking about it, I realized that I'd kissed her immediately after confessing. That meant that I'd never given her a chance to respond. I still didn't want this to end this kiss, however. If I could have, I would have stayed like that all the way until the bus reached her stop. So I wouldn't have any regrets. I gave Hickory one last squeeze and pressed my lips harder against hers before slowly releasing our kiss. Our faces were still close enough together that our noses almost touched. Hickory had a distant look on her face. Her eyes went damp and sparkled in the light. They were so beautiful. Her lips were still slightly parted. That almost seemed to be sad the kiss was over. They looked so cute. I guess this means we have to get married now? I waited for Hickory to respond. I had mustered all the courage in me for this last confession. I'd hoped it had finally been enough.
この
ん
浮気者
What? Something skin-colored flashed in the corner of my eye, and the next thing I knew, the world was spinning and my cheek stung something fierce. The force of the blow had thrown my back against the window of the bus. Hickory was repeatedly mashing the button to let the driver know she wanted to get off. The bus was just pulling up to Mikazaki Station. Hickory stormed off the bus in a violent rage. This was my stop, too. I needed to get off, but so dizzy. That slap Hickory had given me must have rattled my brain because I couldn't see straight. The bus didn't care about me, though. It pulled out of the station and just kept going. The weekend had ended, and it was Monday morning. Damn, it still hurts. I stood at the register, massaging my neck. Ever since Saturday, it had been a pain from the slap Hickory had given me on the bus. It felt like that slap had knocked me out of heaven and straight down to hell. Heaven being the feeling of the kiss that I couldn't remember no matter how hard I tried. That slap was so hard it must have knocked a few memories out of my head. Life really was cruel. That was supposed to have been an important memory for me. Kotaru began barking outside. A few moments later, the doors opened and a short girl walked in. Oh, Ohio? Saya didn't look like she was in a good mood either. She walked timidly past the register and headed over to pick something out for lunch. It looked like things were a little awkward between us as well. She was probably thinking about Saturday. The fact that I hadn't seen her in the store yesterday meant she'd probably been at home angry with herself. The plus side was that she hadn't seen my face red and swollen from the slap. Saya wandered back over to the register with a sweet bun, a rice ball, and some fruit-flavored milk. That'll be 415 yen. Saya opened her coin purse and pulled out some change. She was counting it as she started to speak. No, it's my fault. I took the money from her and handed her back some change. The only reason she tried to help me was the way she did was because I had told her about confessing to Hikari. That's all right. It did end up having an effect. Hi. I wasn't about to go into the details, but she had given me a killer pass that led me to scoring an amazing goal. It had been difficult, but after I'd calmed down a bit, I'd finally scored a point in the end, though I'd screwed up by just trying to act cool. Saya had finally noticed that one side of my face looked a little bigger than usual. Please don't ask. She gave me a suspicious look, but left it at that. I hesitated at first, but then decided to rustle Saya's hair the way I'd always done. Let's just try and go back to the way things were before, okay? Saya responded as she tried to fix her rumpled up hair. The deadline for the manuscript was coming up, so Saya had been going in early to help with the astronomy club with their comic. Okay, I'll see you after school then. As Saya left, her mood seemed somewhat better than it had when she'd walked in. Judging by that, things between her and Hikari would probably be back to normal by the afternoon. The problem is me. How was I supposed to act around her after surprise kissing her and getting slapped in the face? It gave me a headache just thinking about it. Though, it sounds like there might still be a little hope. She sat next to me and wrapped her arm around mine. I could tell that her heart had been beating fast, too. I'd promised her that that would be the last time I confessed, though. I could no longer make any moves. Perhaps I could. No, I had to stop. I guess that means it's over. My mood sunk like a rock. After school, Hikari, Saya, and the 2 girls from Maiku Academy headed to my school. It was the next school on the list for handing out flyers. Nishai Hai and Murimisawa were a bit far away, so they'd be doing something else today.
星野第一の皆さん、プロジェクトスターライトにご協力お願いします。お願いします。
Being a school day, there were a lot of students leaving to go home today.
天文部だってよ。また何かやるらしいぜ。
俺尼校の制服だよな。それと名校と聖戦女子。なんでこんなところにいるんだ？
Having uniforms from other schools really did seem to be helping us draw people's attention.
かよいずまちゃん、何してんの？これはむつら星の会という。
We're doing PR for the astronomy club. Here, please take a flyer.
プロジェクトスターライト。何それ？双子座流星群の夜に部屋の電気を消そうっていうキャンペーンです。もしよかったらご協力お願いします。なんか知らないけどわかったよ。ありがとうございます。
That would be a big help. We were handing out flyers left and right. Being the astronomy club, we had a lot of shy members who weren't good at this sort of thing. They were doing much better than before, though. They were getting used to it. But Hikari's idea of splitting us into pairs seemed to be helping a lot as well. Saya, however, her expression told me that something was still bothering her. Saya?
ごめんなさい。プロジェクトスターライトにご協力をお願いします。
She'd been acting like this after school when we'd all gathered in the astronomy room. The members from Maiku Academy and Saya from Saisen had already shown up. We'd just been waiting for Hikari. Her school, Amahai, was the furthest away, so it took her a while to get there. Saya was waiting for a chance to apologize. It was always nerve-wracking when you had to try and make up with a friend. Saya could be pretty outspoken when she was angry, but she was usually a rather quiet person. After a while waiting, the door flew open without even a knock.
遅くなっちゃった。
Hikari was just as energetic as always. Saya raised her hand timidly and gave a slight wave. Hikari smiled and returned the gesture. Just like that, they were nearly back to normal. All it took was a wave for them to both understand each other's intent. I followed Saya's lead and gave a small wave as well. Hi, Hikari.
おっす、アキト。
Huh? She wasn't as mad as I expected her to be. Her acting normal actually made me feel more uncomfortable than if she had been angry, though.
全員揃いましたし、始めましょうか。その前に提案があるんだけど。なんでしょう。二人一組でやらない？みんな知らない人に声かけるのに慣れてない感じだったし、二人一組ならやりやすいでしょ。確かに。
Hanukkah was probably the most shy after Saya. She nodded as if she thought that this was an ingenious plan.
では、そうしましょう。光。私、吉岡ちゃんと組むね。コロナはひなみちゃんとでいいよね。うん、いいよ。うん。さやはアキトとね。あ、でも。さあ、行こっか。
Ever since Hikari had rushed in and decided on the pairings, Saya had looked dissatisfied. She probably had been hoping to pair up with Hikari to have her chance to smooth things over with her.
さや、そっちどう？
We're doing... Oh,
いい調子だよ。そっか。まあ、当然よね。さやにビラ渡されたら受け取っちゃうよね。ねえ、どうして私とアキトくんがペアなの？ん？別に深い意味はないよ。私がさやと組んじゃったら、アキトが余っちゃってかわいそうじゃん。なら、光がアキトくんと組めばよかったじゃない。そしたらさやが余っちゃうじゃん。何言ってんのよ、この子は。
Hikari answered with her roll of the eyes like it was the most obvious thing in the world before heading back over to where Hanuka was standing. Don't worry about it. She's probably just trying to avoid me.
そういうことじゃないの。
She replied sullenly before turning her back and continuing to hand out flyers.
もう暗くなりますし、そろそろ終わりにしましょうか。
Hanuka suggested this as the sun was going down and the number of students heading home had died down.
見て見てピカリン、コロナたち全部配っちゃったよ。頑張りました。おお、偉いな一年坊ども。その調子で次も頑張るんだよ。うん。ラジャーです。
In the end, splitting into pairs had been a huge success. Everyone was more at ease talking to people, and it was much easier to coordinate movements.
次は西高ですね。この調子で頑張りましょう。ところでさやさん、聖戦女子はどうなりましたか？
Just as I thought.
許可はもらえませんでした。
Everyone knew Sison Girls Academy was strict. They weren't going to let a group of students from other schools in to hand out flyers.
仕方ありませんね。その代わり、食堂の掲示板にビラを貼らせてもらってます。
That's a good idea. I'll see if I can do the same. My school was much more lax than Sison. I shouldn't have any problem getting permission for that. Everyone, thanks for all the help today. I think we managed to spread the word to a lot of people. The ulterior motive of Project Starlight was to spread the appeal of the astronomy club among all the students of the various schools as well. After today, I felt like we were having a pretty big effect. I hope that a lot of people who took our flyers would also end up checking out the website.
観望会もあるし、もっとたくさんの人に知ってもらわないとだね。今度の観望会はなるべく身内以外にも来てもらいたいですからね。
It wasn't long until our next stargazing meetup. We planned on using it to spread the word about Project Starlight even more. Crap, I need to get to the store before my shift. I'd lost track of the time chatting with the others. The store manager had told me to focus on my club activities first, and I was grateful for that. She'd overlooked me being a little late, but somebody had to manage the store until then. That meant her daughter would be forced to work overtime. And that wouldn't be good for me.
では、ここで解散としますか。お疲れ様でした。
Okay, see you later.
お疲れ様。部長、皆さん、お疲れ様です。
Hikari, Saya, and I were the only ones that needed to take the bus heading toward Mikazaki Station. I hopped on the bus when it pulled up, and Hikari and Saya followed after. It must have been time for everyone to head home because the bus was pretty crowded.
あ、さや、こっちこっち。
Hikari waved Saya over to two open seats next to each other. Saya hurried over and sat down. I thought Hikari would take the seat next to her, but instead she grabbed my arm and pulled me over. What?
はい、あんたはここ。
Hikari pushed me down next to Saya.
光？私はあっちに座ってるね。
She took a seat by herself a little ways away. Hikari, she was being way too obvious. It had been obvious when she split us into pairs today as well. She was clearly trying to force Saya and me together. Something sank in the pit of my stomach. I glanced over at Saya and... the look of offended displeasure on her face was so intense that I thought steam might be billowing out of her ears. I thought they had made up, but this looked worse than before. I couldn't let the two of them go home like this. I had to get them to make up. But what could I do? I considered the possibilities as the bus sped on toward the station. When it finally did pull to the station, the sun had set and the horizon was growing dark. Saya didn't say a word as she stood up, her face still cheerless. Hikari wore a clearly fake smile as we stepped off the bus. Hey, do you guys want to stop by the store? We're trying out a new flavor of pork bun right now. You should try one and let me know what you think. It was the best neutral reason to keep them both there that I could think think of. We could talk after the air cleared a little. It was the first new flavor in 3 years. I thought it was pretty good when I tried it, so I was sure it would put them in a better mood.
へえ、美味しそう。でも私はいいや。帰ったら晩ご飯あるし。
Come on, you'd be doing the old man a favor if you tried one.
うん。なら、さやに頼みなよ。ねえ、さや、いいよね。アキトと早乙女に寄って帰りなよ。いい加減にしてよ。
Saya had been following behind us, but she suddenly stopped, mumbling something under her breath. It was dark and she was looking down, so I couldn't read the expression on her face.
さや、いい加減にしてよ。
Saya?
何のつもりなの、光。何って、今さら私とアキトくんをくっつけようとしてるの？言ってるじゃない。アキトくんが好きな人は私じゃないって。だからそれはこいつの気の迷いで。気の迷いじゃない。もう分かってるでしょ、あなたにも。でもさやはアキトのこと。
Hikari was mumbling and Saya gave her an intense glare.
私はあなたに譲ってほしいんじゃない。同情なんかしないで。
Saya screamed these final words, spun around and ran off. Saya, wait! Hikari stared after Saya with a completely dumbfounded look on her face.
何よ。あんたがアキトのこと好きだって言うから、私さやのバカー。
Saya was still running, but I was sure she could hear Hikari shouting. Hikari spun and made to go into the station, but I grabbed her arm. Hikari, wait!
離して。
She threw off my grip and ran through the ticket gate. Damn it. I only hesitated for a moment, then took off at a sprint after Saya. Saya! She had slowed to a brisk walk, and I finally caught up with her. Saya!
ほっといて。
Saya wasn't crying. She'd always been quick to start crying, but she was holding back her tears with all her might this time.
平気だもん。光のことなんか大嫌いだし。家に帰ってからも絶対泣いたりしないから。
Now you just sound like stubborn. Everyone had their own pride to protect, though. Why don't you come to the store, try one of the new pork buns for me? And if you need to talk or just vent, I'll listen.
優しくされると余計に悲しくなるから。お願い。今は放っておいて。
As soon as Sai said this, she turned away from me and kept walking. As her friend, I wanted to be there for her, but it seemed that it was just making it more painful for her. There was nothing else I could say to her right now. All I could do was stand there and watch her leave. I had been walking back home after graduation. Hikari had been sitting on the bridge guardrail, her head hanging down. When she noticed me walking toward her, she looked up. At the time, Hikari and I hadn't been on good terms with each other. It had been over 2 months since we'd spoken. Graduation was over, and Hikari and her family were moving away the next day. This would be farewell. Thinking about that was painful, but I still couldn't bring myself to get past my feelings of betrayal. I decided to ignore her as I walked past.
待って、アキト。
What do you want?
これ。
Hikari handed me an envelope with a bunny sticker on it. What's this?
それラブレターだから読んだら返事ちょうだい。
Without giving me time to say anything, Hikari turned and ran off. A love letter?
これです部長。
Hinami spun her phone around to show me the screen. It was displaying a popular video site.
何何？
Corona came over to see what was going on as well.
ポチッとな。
Hinami pressed the play button and the video started. Football? The video was of a popular football game. I thought it was one of those top plays videos or something, but then a uniformed high school girl suddenly appeared. She snatched the ball as it sprinted off down the field, her pigtails waving behind her. She weaved through the giant linebackers as she went on to score an amazing touchdown.
ヒカリンだ。
What is this?
他にもあります。
Seeing the dumbfounded look on my face, Hinami proudly began to play back some more videos for us. There was a video of her running alongside a herd of wildebeest, another of her stealing a grazing chicken from some farm and sprinting off with it. Another one showed her saving a kitten from a raging battlefield. It looked well made, but I couldn't figure out why there would be a cat on a battlefield full of bullets, lasers, and missiles, though. The pig-tailed schoolgirl just gallantly ran out to save the kitten, dodging laser fire and explosions. Somebody had spent a lot of time making the video.
以上が私のベストセレクションです。
That's great, but what are they?
コメットガールマット動画です。
The comic girl meme? I couldn't do anything but just repeat what she said. I thought that it had already died down.
なんなん。有料なマット素材として新たなブームになりつつあるんです。
Hinami pointed at the number of views. Over 10,000 views?
投稿されてから1週間経ってないね。もうそんなに言ってるんだ。まだまだ伸びると思います。
Hinami was getting excited and her breathing sped up as she spoke. I still didn't understand viral videos or memes, but I had to admit that they were really man-made.
ヒカリンすごいね。どんどん有名になってくじゃん。
If only we could get that many people to click over to Project Starlight's page. The site had been getting a steady trickle of hits since it had gone live. When we decided to make flyers, we'd also discussed doing some online PR as well. Someone had even suggested an explanatory video for the site. After seeing the views for those videos, though, I could feel my motivation dropping.
よくできていますね。どうやって作っているんでしょう。マット職人がいるのです。コメットガールが走るところは切り抜いて、グリーンバックにしたものが配布されていますので。
Some people must really love this sort of thing to spend so much time on it for no profit.
天の川先輩もどうぞご覧になってください。
Saya was sitting in a corner of the room reading an astronomy magazine. Hinami started over, phone held out proudly.
コメットガール先輩が大活躍していますよ。
Hinami, wait. I moved to stop her, but I was too slow. Saya looked up at Hinami with a serious look on her face.
私、忙しいの。そういうのは後にしてもらっていいかな。すみません。
Hinami shrank back in fear as Saya returned her attention to the magazine. Saya hadn't even offered the slightest smile as she spoke.
さやさん、どうなさったんですか？
She and Hikari had a fight.
いつもあんなに仲良くなさってたのに？仲良くなんかないもん。ごめんなさい。
Now Haruka was shrinking back in fear as well. Saya, I'm sure you don't mean that, do you? I said this softly like a father who hadn't spoken to his adolescent daughter in a few months and was trying to patch things up. Saya had been prickly like this for a while now.
どうしてしまわれたのだろう。あの菩薩のように優しかった天の川先輩が。さあ。
She was making everyone nervous. Even Corona was treading lightly so as not to set her off. I'm sorry, this is my fault.
そうなのですか？違います。
Saya denied my statement without hesitation. She looked focused on her magazine, but the speed of her response told me otherwise. It wouldn't matter what I tried to say. It didn't seem like I'd be able to calm her down for the moment.
そういやピカリン来ないね。
Corona glanced outside as she said this. A thick layer of clouds hung in the sky, turning the afternoon gloomy.
コメットガール先輩に早く山田セレクションを見せたいのに。
And maybe she decided not to come today. I wouldn't blame her after what happened. I had tried texting her a few times, but she hadn't responded. I'd figured she was either depressed, angry, or both. She made the trip here from Amahai almost every day. For her not to come, things had to be pretty serious.
ですが今日いらっしゃると連絡がありましたよ。
She did?
はい、官房会の準備のためにと。
We had a meetup only a few days away, and we'd invited a bunch of non-members to come. We were planning on making a presentation about Project Starlight to all the adults we'd invited, so it was kind of a big deal for us.
ゲスト用の毛布や懐中電灯が足りないから事前に用意しておくと言ってました。スラミくんが詳しいはずだから手伝ってもらうように伝えたのですが。
She never mentioned anything to me. I hadn't heard anything from her. It didn't even look like she was reading the messages I'd sent. It wasn't like today was the last chance to get ready for the stargazing event, but it sounded like she was doing it on her own to avoid us. I had an uncomfortable feeling as I looked over to stare out the window. Thick dark clouds were starting to form in the sky overhead. It was going to rain tonight.
これだけあれば足りるかな。
I sighed as I stepped back to count all the blankets, flashlights, and other supplies I'd gathered. It had been tough carrying all this here by myself.
今度の官房会は大事なプレゼンの場でもあるからね。
There were going to be a lot of non-members and adults from the surrounding area coming. We'd gotten help from Miss Sayatomi and others to invite as many people as possible. We took as much help as we could get to benefit Project Starlight. This would be the second Six Stars Club event with attendees who weren't part of the club. The first time had been to Pleiades 1's first light event. The event had been a success, but there were still things that could have gone better. So we had taken the basic plan for that one and used it to come up with the current plan. We wanted it to be even more of a success than last time.
成功させて取り戻すんだから。昔みたいな星空を。
I went outside and noticed that even though it wasn't that late, it looked gloomy. Even at the best of times, this quiet abandoned station looked faded and dull. Being here alone felt a little strange.
私まで時間から取り残されて誰からも忘れられちゃったみたい。
It was a terrifying thought, but part of me desired just that. To just stop and remain in a world without time.
あの頃は良かったな。何にも考えずただ楽しいことだけして過ごせてたんだもん。
Catching bugs in the forest and fishing in the river during summer, eating good food under the leaves in fall, running around despite the cold in the winter. Then spring would come and make me nervous. A part of me always felt sad that another year had gone by. The stars changed depending on the season, too. Ever since I started looking at the stars, I could feel the passing of the seasons by the positions of the constellations. Meteor showers, lunar eclipses, even phenomena like star eclipses that most regular people are completely unaware of. Our days were filled with exciting events that I always believed would continue on and on without end. But just as the stars can't help but continue their dance through the sky, people can't remain children forever. Without noticing the changes, people grow up a little at a time. All the while losing little things, some important, some not so much, like trinkets falling through a hole in your pocket. I felt like a being that had transcended time as I placed my hand on the train car that sat there, unchanged from what it had looked like back then.
どうして恋なんて面倒なことするのかな。ずっと子供のままいられたらそれで楽しかったじゃんか。あんたも覚えてるでしょ。
The only answer I was met with was silence. I wondered what Saya or Akita would have to say if I asked them the same question. I felt something cold land on the back of my hand, so I looked up. Thick, dark rain clouds stretched out above me in all directions. I felt another drop land on my cheek.
やば、降ってきちゃった。ない、忘れてきた。
I should have had a collapsible umbrella in my bag, but I couldn't find it.
こないだ荷物になるからって下駄箱にしまっちゃったんだ。
I looked out through the fogged up window. It was still only a drizzle, and I wasn't worried about getting a little wet. I picked up my bag and hurried out the old train car. I sprinted back into the train and began to wring the water from my sleeves and skirt.
もう何よこれ。
I'd meant to get back to the station before the rain got worse, but it had turned into a downpour before I could get very far, and I ended up turning back. I tried to use my bag as a makeshift umbrella, but it hadn't helped much. Both my tick-tails were heavy with water. It was like the skies had burst, and all the rain had come in at once. The small river was now running alongside the abandoned platform. I pulled out a handkerchief and began trying to dry myself off.
気休めにしかならないわね。
There was no way I was going to get dry without a bath towel. It was cold and wet, and my clothes hung to me. I grabbed one of the blankets I brought for the event and wrapped it around myself.
スマホのバッテリー切れてるじゃん。
I was going to check the weather report to see how long this rain would last, but my phone decided to fail me in my time of need. Not only could I not call anybody, but I couldn't even pass the time by listening to music or surfing the web.
私ってなんでこう考えが足りないんだろう。
My mood sank. I knew this was supposed to rain today, but I'd been too busy thinking about how awkward it would be to see Saya and Nikita that I ended up coming out here on my own. Still, you could have at least double-checked to make sure you had your umbrella and enough power in your phone. A certain someone's voice echoed in my head.
うっさいな。ここにいないくせにお説教とかやめてよね。
I scooted over to the corner of my seat, pulled the blanket tighter around me. I needed to keep warm and wait out of the rain. I couldn't afford to catch a cold now. I started to get sleepy and doze off.
寒。
My body started to shiver and hugged myself tighter. I hugged myself tighter. It must have been the wet clothes I was wearing. They were stilling my body heat and lowering my core temperature. Glancing outside, I noticed that it was starting to get dark too.
私もしかして遭難しちゃってる。
It actually looked like the rain was coming down harder than before. If it kept up like this,
どうしよう。帰れないよ。
I probably should have kept going before. I would be soaked to the bone, but at least I would have been able to make it down the mountain and get home. Miss Sayatomi would probably have lent me a towel and a change of clothes. If it got dark, I'd be stuck up here. I might be able to find my way with one of the flashlights, but the steep trails would be muddy. Some spots are probably little rivers by now. Even I knew it would be reckless to try and leave in this weather.
お腹すいた。
I remembered that I had a half-eaten bar of chocolate in my bag. As I snacked on that, I began to grumble to myself.
なんで私がこんな目に。
I knew it was was my fault for acting alone like I did. But considering everything that had happened, it was just too much to blame myself for this. I already felt sorry enough for myself.
いい加減にしてよ。私はあなたに譲ってほしいんじゃない。同情なんかしないで。何よ、サヤのバカ。あんな言い方しなくたっていいじゃない。
Saya had been the one who told me she liked Akito in the first place. I was just trying to help her. So why was she the one getting mad at me?
アキトが悪いんだわ。あいつが私に告白なんてするから。
He was the reason that everything was getting so complicated. Why didn't he just give an arrest and date Saya already? Then I could be with both of them as a friend.
友達として。
I'm not going to say this again, so listen very carefully. I'm not joking around when I say this. I truly do like you, Hikari. The most embarrassing part of the memory, the part I didn't want to remember, played back in my head and my face felt hot.
これいいかも。体がポカポカしてきた。
It was embarrassing to think about, but it was helping me warm up a bit.
体を温めるためなんだから。
There was nobody around, but I wanted to make that perfectly clear. That was the only reason I was playing that scene over and over in my head.
恥ずかしいよ。
Kissing me like that with no warning. I'd always thought of a kiss as something that happened under a beautiful starry sky after being softly asked if it was okay. But that forceful kiss had given me more of a heart attack than the first time I confessed. I thought my head would explode.
キスって想像してたのと全然違った。
My body was feeling even hotter now. I felt like a locomotive engine that somebody had thrown too much coal into. I was pretty much sure steam would start pouring out of my ears soon. My lips started to tingle. I pressed them into the blanket to stop the sensation. I was growing more and more embarrassed by the second, but this was an emergency, so I had no choice if I was going to stay warm. I remained wrapped up in the blanket for a bit, battling the shivers that were being caused by my embarrassment. I felt like I would die of embarrassment if I let my guard down. It was warming me up, but as I slowly became used to the overwhelming embarrassment, I felt a blank feeling begin to form inside.
すごくバカみたいだ。
I really was an idiot. Why? Because I turned down Akito's confessions. That was the reason I was here now agonizing over my mixed feelings of embarrassment and pleasure. I might have been better off just dying of embarrassment right then and there. I pulled the blanket so tight that it was almost suffocating. A fuzzy feeling of detachment welled up, and one where I couldn't feel regret.
だってあいつは親友の好きな男の子なんだもん。しょうがないじゃない。
I had known how she'd felt for a long time. It had been raining that day too.
雨止まないね。そうだね。
I think it had been sometime during June of 6th grade. It had suddenly started raining. Saya and I had forgotten our umbrellas and were stuck after school, staring out at the downpour from our classroom. I couldn't remember why, but Akito hadn't been there. Maybe he had an umbrella and had run home through the rain without us. Anyway, Saya and I had been the only two left in the classroom.
雨嫌いだな。濡れるし、ジメジメするし、星も見えないし。ねえ、さや。どうしたの？お腹でも痛い？
The look on her face made me think it wasn't feeling well, but she took a deep breath and asked me a completely unrelated question.
光、僕のこと カだなーって思ってるよ。そういうんじゃなくて。違うの？好きなのかなって。好きだよ。やっぱりそうなんだ。じゃあなきゃ一緒に遊ばないよ。さやのことも好きだよ。ありがとう。でもね、そういうんじゃなくてね。何言ってるかわかんないよ。私ね、はっくんが。
To be honest, even after she told me how she felt, I still didn't really get it. I was just a kid. I didn't have a clue about things like love. But Saya looked so cute, turning red, and while she told me how she felt about Akito, I remember feeling a throbbing deep in my chest. That's when I decided to help her however I could. She was my best friend, after all. Not understanding what love was, however, it ended up being a little more than I could handle. I did things like pass drinks around so Saya and Akita would use the same straw, or make her fall over so that she would have to catch her. Just like Akita told me before, my methods of assisting were crude and ineffective. At some point along the way, a strange feeling awakened inside me. Clouds hung heavy in the air, looking as if it might even start snowing. I was hiding out in the train car where the icy wind had found its way in, making me shiver. I felt something soft and warm on my back and my neck and made me look up. Put that on. His speech was blunt. He had given me his scarf. I remember it still being warm from his body. They say dummies don't catch cold, but I wouldn't let your guard down this year.
ありがとう。それ、私がバカだって意味？
I would never.
おーじゃない。あんたの方がバカでしょうが。こないだの算数のテスト32点だったくせに。
Man, it really is freezing. Akita was huddled up on the seat in the corner where the draft wasn't so strong.
失礼なやつだな。
I grumbled slightly under my breath even as I was soaking up the warmth from the scarf he'd given me. By that time, I had already been slightly aware of the new sensation growing in me. I'd known what it was as well. I'd already fallen in love with Akito.
あ、雪だ。降ってきたよ、秋田。
Seriously? But it was already too late. Saya had already told me how she felt.
積もるかな。積もったら雪合戦しようね。
Don't expect me to go soft.
確かあの日、秋と風邪ひいたんだよね。
He got pretty sick too, and all because he lent me his scarf. I remember going to visit him and taking some strawberry shortcake. We ended up getting it together and it tasted great.
やっぱりバカは秋とだわ。
Back then, I wasn't sure of my own feelings. After all, it had been the first time I'd ever felt love. Actually, that wasn't true. Even now, I still wasn't sure if the strange feeling rolling around inside me was actually love or not. It might have been love, or it might have been something completely different. The only thing I knew was that I needed to hide it.
私が私の気持ちに気づけたのは、さやを見てたからだもん。
She was cute the way her love for Akito made her act. She'd always been more girlish than me, but her girlish charm seemed to grow stronger as her feelings for Akito grew. Watching the way she acted toward him is what made me realize I had those same feelings. Saya is the reason I was able to fall in love. I thought that maybe I was just trying to imitate her, though. She'd always been so ladylike. I looked up to her in that respect. Even if it had been okay for me to show my feelings on the outside, I still decided to keep them hidden.
だって秋と、私のこと女の子だって思ってなかったもん。
He always treated me like another of the guys. I just guess it wasn't his fault, though. Back then, I really did act like one of the boys. Maybe things would have been different if I had even even a tenth of the girlishness of Saya. But then, that's why I decided to support her instead. No matter what we did, though, Akito never seemed to notice how Saya felt. After all, he'd still been a kid, too. Back then, we'd been keeping a planetary observation journal in an attempt to win the citywide independent research contest. We'd been working on it for almost a year. It was nearly complete. That also meant that the day I would have to move was approaching. I knew this because of my sister. Even if everything went as planned and they canceled the dam's construction, the railroad would still be shut down. I continued working on the journal with them, however. I was having too much fun to stop. The three of us were traveling the galaxy together. But even that journey would soon be coming to an end. I would have to get off before our train reached its destination. If that was the case, I wanted to at least help Saya express her feelings before I was gone. Why hadn't Akito realized how she'd felt toward him? I started wondering if maybe that was my fault for always being in the way. Whenever I was around, we'd all start acting silly. Akito was shy as well, so I figured the atmosphere would never be right for them while I was here. That's why that day... How about tonight? Now that we're on vacation, we can stargaze all night.
コロナも
Hikari?
やめとく。さやと言っといでよ。
So, you're not coming? But we've been looking forward to winter vacation for ages. What's wrong with you today? Did you eat something weird? I felt a pain in my chest seeing the perplexed look on Akito's face. I thought that maybe I was about to do something that could never be undone.
飽きちゃった。星とか見るのもう飽きちゃったんだ。だからもういいやって。ノートももう完成してるし、あとはさやと二人でやりなよ。じゃあね。
Hey, wait, Hikari!
ひかりちゃん。
Just thinking about it made my chest ache again. I really hurt them that day. Especially Akito. One of my best friends and the boy that I liked. And the incident with the journal was not too long after that. From then on, Akito and I just stopped talking to each other. Akito started hanging out with Takeichi and the other boys, while Saya and I started hanging out just the two of us. It stayed that way until the day we graduated. After the ceremony, I waited for Akito on the bridge we always used. I stared down at the love letter in my hand with a feeling of melancholy. Saya had written it. During the period Akito and I hadn't been speaking, Saya had written the letter and tried to give it to him on more than one occasion. She was too shy, though, and was never able to do it. So I ended up taking the letter to give it to him in her place. It was the last big job I had to do before leaving Mikuzuki Village. Somewhere in the corner of my heart, though, there was a part of me that didn't want to give it to him. If I was the one to give him the letter, I would be giving up my own feelings toward him. That's how I felt.
まあ、アキトだってさやを選ぶに決まってるしね。
Even the envelope with the bunny sticker on it looked cute and girlish. I would never be able to match that. Even if I was moving away, there would have been no chance for me. In every sense, my first love had been over before it had even started. And if that was the case, I could at least help my friend's wish come true. Akito had finally shown up and he was alone. I hopped down from the guardrail where I'd been sitting, swinging my legs. I was about to say something, but it had been a while since we'd spoken. I was nervous, but also a little happy. But he completely ignored me and just kept on walking. I couldn't blame him, I guess. We had been in the middle of a fight.
待って、アキト。
I screwed up my courage and called out his name. He stopped and turned around to look at me. What do you want?
これ。
At the very least, I had to tell him how Saya felt, so I thrust the letter at him. Akito looked at me suspiciously, but took it. What's this?
それ、ラブレターだから、読んだら返事ちょうだい。
I felt like I was about to burst, so the moment I got the words out, I turned and ran away. I hadn't even remembered to tell him who the letter was from, let alone repair our friendship before I had to move away. That was the day I had given up my feelings of love. It had been my own choice. Still,
私だって本当は好きだったもん。ずっとずっと好きだったもん。
I hugged my knees and huddled all up in the dark and gloomy train car. At that time I'd forgotten. I felt lonely, sad, and the pain in my chest was growing. Why had I given up my feelings back then? Why had I decided to let somebody else have them instead? Hikari. The rain was coming down so hard that I couldn't tell if my umbrella was doing me any good or not, but I finally made it to the old train station. Water was running down the platform in little rivers as I ran onto the train car. I folded my umbrella and peered around. After a moment, I could hear the sound of a soft crying mixed with the rain. Somebody was huddled in a seat in the far corner. Hikari! Hikari raised her face and looked at me with an expression of utter disbelief. I was right. I thought she might be here, and there she was, crouched alone in the corner of the dark train car, no less.
あつと
The blanket she had wrapped around herself was quickly forgotten as she jumped to her feet.
あきた
Hikari flung her arms around me.
あきたあきたあきたあきたあきた
She must have felt completely helpless up here alone. She clung tighter to me and continued to cry. I returned the embrace. She felt so cold she must have gotten wet in the rain.
来てくれるなんて思わなかった怖かったよ
It's all right. I'm here. I hugged her tighter and began rubbing her shoulders to try and warm her up a little. I was hot from running all the way here, and Hikari's chilled body actually felt good against mine. It's all right. I continued to share some of my warmth as I waited for her to calm down. After a while, she finally stopped crying. Are you all right now? I looked into her eyes as I asked, but she backed away without answering. She looked sullen as she averted her eyes. Hikari?
何しに来たのよ
I was worried about you. I thought you might have come up here, and so I came to check. Then I find you crying. Why didn't you pick up your phone? I'd never been in that much of a hurry or gotten that wet in my life.
電話
Your phone. I tried calling you a dozen times.
私の勝手でしょあんたからの電話になんか出てやるもんですか
I wasn't even sure she was just trying to hide her embarrassment or what, but Hikari's attitude suddenly became distant. Is that really something somebody who was just bawling her eyes out is allowed to say? I came all the way up here because I was worried sick about you. It had started raining when I reached the dam. It was getting stronger and stronger, and running up the path hadn't been easy. I hadn't any proof that she was actually even here either. Now I was standing there, soaking wet except for the small part of my upper body that I'd been able to protect with the umbrella.
別に頼んでなんかだいたいあんたはさやのそばにいてあげなさいよなんで私のとこなんかに来るのよ
You're still on about that?
何度だって言ってやるわあんたはさやと付き合うべきなんだもん
So my feelings don't count?
それがおかしいって言ってんのどうして私を選ぶのよさやの方が断然可愛いでしょうが
How should I know the reason? I suddenly raised my voice and shouted, then inclined my head, wondering why we were talking about this now. All I'd wanted to do was make sure Hikari hadn't been stuck up here all alone in the rain. I don't know how you feel, but I I caught myself and swallowed my next words.
好きなのは
Never mind. I promised you before that that was the last time. My confession on the bus had been my last. I had made a promise. My feelings hadn't changed, of course, and I had no plans of falling in love with any other girl, so that had been the last confession I'd ever make.
そうふんせいしたわ二度と言わないでちょうだいね
And those are your true feelings?
そうよずっとそう言ってるじゃない
Fine then. I'm sorry for pushing. Forget about me if you want, but at least fix things with Saya. After I said this, I handed her the umbrella I've been using to Hikari.
どうする気
I'll see you later.
じゃあなってちょっと秋田
I ignored her as I ran back out into the downpour. Akito ran back out into the storm without an umbrella. I stood in the doorway for a little while, before making my way back into the corner and sitting down.
なんか急に寒くなった気がする
It had felt so warm when I was hugging Akito. Almost hot. I needed to wrap up in the blanket again before all the heat had given me escaped. But I kept glancing back at the door instead. I never thought he would actually take off and leave me here. I figured he'd grumble but stay here with me. How stupid of me. I still half expected him to come walking back through the door at any moment.
だってあいつ優しいし
He'd been that way since the first time I met him. He'd been the one who had helped me save Kotoru when I found him, floating down in the river in a cardboard box. It had been his first day at a new school, but he had gotten his pants wet in the river just to help me. He was normally blunt and a bit shy around girls, but he never hesitated to lend a hand to somebody in trouble. Even today, he'd come all the way here in the pouring rain just to make sure I was okay. There was no sign of him coming back, and there was no way he could hide anywhere nearby and still see me through the heavy rain. Had he really gone home? Had he really grown fed up with me for being such an obstinate jerk? Never mind. I had promised you before that it was the last time.
言ってくれないんだ好きってもう言ってくれないんだやだよそんなの
I grabbed the umbrella that he'd left me and ran outside. I stopped on the platform, fat raindrops still pouring down in sheets. I stared out into the distance and could only see a rainy haze. There was no sign of Akito.
バカー本当は好きなのに
I was crying as I screamed out into the rain. The words that I'd wanted to say for so long but never could. I was just about to run after him through the rain, but... Do you really mean that? I turned around. Akito was sitting under a covered waiting area on the platform, though the roof was nearly gone. He had thoroughly fooled me after all. Despite it all, I couldn't hold it in any longer.
そうよそうだもん好きだもん秋田のことずっと好きだったんだもん
I thought he was only going to hug me, but my words were cut off as something warm pressed against my lips. I hadn't finished speaking. I hadn't yet said it enough. I wanted to tell him everything I liked about him and how hard it had been keeping it all bottled up for so long. But now I was physically unable to speak. If that was the case, then I would just have to let him know without words.
秋田
I pressed my lips harder against his. I wasn't as good as the actresses in his movies or TV shows. It was a terrible kiss, but I didn't know how to do any better. It was the first time I'd kissed anybody by choice. I wrapped my one free hand around Akito and pulled him closer. I was suddenly aware of the hand gripping the umbrella. It was shaking and doing a poor job of holding it up. I considered just letting it fall. Akito had both hands free to wrap around me as much as he wanted. He caressed my back, and one hand even wandered down to my butt in excitement. I was surprised, but I didn't want him to stop. I pulled my lips back just enough to speak.
もう両思いって分かったんだし、だから約束破りにはならないから言ってよ、アキト。
I couldn't tell if he meant to tease me or not, but he remained silent.
今言ってくれたら私心までとろけちゃうから。
I was looking up at him timidly, and he looked back at me with nothing but affection and whispered, "I love you. I love you more than you know, Hikari." As soon as he'd said this, he couldn't hold himself back any longer. He pulled me in for another deep kiss. It was an awkward, clumsy kiss. The cold rain was falling on us now, but my lips felt so hot that they thought they might get burned. We're soaked. We'd gone back into the train car, and I was once again fully aware of the weight of the wet clothes clinging to my skin. Hikari didn't say anything as she pulled out a handkerchief and began drying off my face and the back of my neck.
服脱いじゃった方がいいかも。風邪ひいちゃうから。
Hikari's face turned red as she turned around. You're probably right. I kept telling myself that it was dark and we couldn't see, but my heart was beating fast. With Hikari facing the other way, I stripped off my clothes and hung them to dry on the back of a seat. Hikari sat down on a nearby seat and opened a blanket.
一つの毛布に入った方が暖かいでしょ。
I sat down next to her and we curled up together under the blanket. The blanket trapped Hikari's body warmth inside. It was very warm. You're so warm, Hikari.
そう？
This happened before, didn't it? The other time we had been on the roof of the train car.
こうしたらもっと暖かいよ。
Hikari pressed herself against me. She entwined our arms in the blanket, forcing our bodies together. Feeling Hikari's heat against my skin was almost too hot.
どうかな。
Hikari had taken off her wet jacket, and all she was wearing was a thin blouse. I could not only feel heat, but her softness as well. The feeling I had while kissing and holding her before rose up again. Can we get closer? I asked this, but slipped my arm around Hikari's hips without waiting for a reply. I held Hikari close under the blanket.
ちょっと。
It's super warm like this.
そう？じゃあいいよ。
We both went quiet and just held each other. I felt like the temperature under the blanket kept rising and rising. I couldn't help getting excited, so I put my lips to Hikari's ear and whispered, "I love you."
なんかそれゾクゾクする。
I could feel Hikari's butter shiver next to mine. I wanted her so much I couldn't stand it. As I held her, I rubbed my cheek on hers.
あ、ちょっと。これなんかいやらしい。
Hikari's chest had been touching the arm where I had wrapped around her. I held her in this tight space so as not to move the blanket off, so I naturally pressed against her.
あ、ちょっと。それわざとやってない？
I can't help it in this position. It's not on purpose.
本当かな。ほら、やっぱりわざとやってるでしょ。
Your body is so soft, Hikari. It feels good like this.
人をデブみたいに言うな。太ってるのは胸だけだもん。
She was cute when she was angry. I wanted Hickory even more after that, and rubbed my cheek on hers while holding her.
ねえ、アキトはさっきのまた言って。耳元で
I put my lips to Hickory's ear.
ってやつ。
I love you. Hickory writhed her body like I was tickling a sensitive spot. Because of that, her chest pressed against my arm again. I love you, Hickory.
アキトに好きってささやかれると頭がぼーっとしてきちゃう。
You're cute, Hickory. That's why I love you.
私も好き。
I love how nice you are to hold.
こーら、調子に乗るな。
I joked around and Hickory tried to push me away. I held Hickory tight so she couldn't get away. Then I put my lips to her ear, and I didn't whisper, I just kissed her.
キスは耳じゃなく唇にするものでしょ。
I kissed her ear to her cheek, then down to her neck, then slowly I moved to her mouth.
いやらしい。絶対調子に乗ってるよ。
Hickory mussed up my hair while she shivered.
すごくドキドキする。
I could feel Hickory's heartbeat in my chest. You're not kidding. What's the matter? Why are you quiet?
さっきからわざとやってるでしょ。私が恥ずかしがるのを見て楽しんでるんだ。
You're right, I am doing it on purpose, but I'm not enjoying your embarrassment. I gently held on to Hickory. You're so adorable, I just can't stand it. But this is a first for me. I don't know what to do.
アキトの好きにすればいいと思う。何？
It's just I didn't expect that, Hickory. You must be thinking something naughty.
違うもん。私はアキトが好きなだけだもん。アキトのすることだったら大体なんだって嬉しいだけだもん。
I held Hickory close again and pressed my lips against hers hard. The intense kiss was less clumsy than the first. The kiss intensified, each of us letting the other know how strong our desire was. For a while, we forgot ourselves and coveted each other's lips. It's amazing, your chest. Each time we kissed, I wanted to get closer, but her chest was almost an obstacle. Touching it, I felt that it was more voluminous than it looked. You were so flat when we were kids. I had also changed as a man. It had only been a couple of years since she had changed this much. Girls are so strange.
アキトがさっきから私のことをやらしい目で見てくる。
Her words were accusing, but the tone sounded happy somehow. Do you like being looked at like that? Hickory went quiet. Or do you not like it? The mix of desire and anxiety I felt may have made me a little afraid. Hickory shook her head.
嫌じゃない。でも照れちゃうよ。だって私のことなんか女の子として見てもらえてないって思ってたもん。
But you're such a girl.
おっぱいだけ褒められてるみたいでやだ。
Not only that, you're also cute, Hickory, with such a good body, and you're really ladylike on the inside. She knew that from my earlier teasing confession. Your lips are so soft when we kiss.
もうキス としたら何でもごまかせるって思ってない？
Can I not? I joked, but Hickory looked at me with sulking eyes.
好きって言ってからならまあ
You're easy. Without thinking, I laughed.
ちょろくない。キスはあと100回しなきゃダメよ。
She said this and then puffed out her lips. I stroked Hickory's cheek. I love you. I said this to accompany the kiss. The sun set at some point, and our bodies were touching in the darkened train car. The aftertaste of the 100 kisses remained. Our hearts and bodies were filled with the joy of telling someone you like them, and sharing heat and feeling warmth with them. Still, so we sat almost wordlessly on the seat, holding hands with our shoulders together. That was all we needed. But the heat gradually dissipated. There was so much heat before, but it had gotten chilly. I pulled the blanket up to my shoulders. Hickory snuggled her head against my shoulder.
いっぱいキスしちゃったね。
Hi.
秋とすっごい激しかった。
Sorry, I really wasn't thinking. As I calmed down, I started to worry that maybe I overdid it.
ちょっとびっくりしたけど、でも嫌じゃなかったよ。
And I'm glad. You were pretty into it too, Hickory.
だって嬉しかったんだもん。秋人が私のことエッチな目で見てくれるのが。
Isn't that something you normally hate?
秋人以外だと嫌だけど、私ずっと秋人に女の子として見てもらえてないって思ってたから、エッチな目で見るってことは女の子扱いしてくれてるってことでしょ。
Hickory looked up at me and asked like she was worried for some reason. I planted a light kiss on her forehead. You're a really cute girl, Hickory.
照れる。私にも女の魅力が少しはあったんだね。
I was honestly surprised when I saw you again. I thought, is that really Hickory?
それって子供の頃はやっぱり女の子扱いしてなかったってことじゃ。
Well, honestly, we had spent those days not worrying about who was a boy or a girl. The fact that Hickory had been especially boisterous and played more like a boy had only exacerbated it.
あの頃に告白してたら振られてたってことじゃ。危なかった。
When I was a kid, it would have been impossible even to force me to talk about love. But I don't think I would have been felt bad if Hickory had told me she liked me. In fact, knowing how Hickory felt might have started my feelings in me, too. I would have liked to have seen the Hickory I played with as a kid slowly change into Hickory the girl. What's with that look?
もしかして秋人が私に感じてる女の子らしさって胸だけじゃないの？
No, that's not what I meant. I hurriedly corrected myself. That was the thing that had changed the most, but it wasn't the only thing. More than that has become girly. You look good with long hair now, and you're so soft to hold. Your face, that's always been cute.
照れる。恥ずかしいこと言わないで。
Embarrassed, Hickory drilled her head in my shoulder. It was cute and girly that she got shy over such trivial things.
幸せだよ。
Yeah, me too. We held each other again, feeling each other's heat and breath. Hickory noticed something and raised her face. What's up?
ねえ、もしかして。
Hickory was looking at the window and listening. I did the same and noticed too.
雨上がってる。
We stepped outside to find that the rain had completely stopped.
それにほら、星が見えるよ。
The stars shone in the cloudless sky.
綺麗。
Hi. We touched shoulders again. We weren't able to do this naturally a little while ago. We weren't ashamed of anything anymore, because now we were boyfriend and girlfriend. I put my arm around Hikary's shoulders and looked up at the stars. In a high point in the sky, I could see the great square of Pegasus, the stars shining red near the must-have-been Mars. The starry sky was pretty. The mood was perfect, too, kind of emotional. However, it was night and the temperature had dropped quite a bit. The wind was blowing, so standing there with no warm clothes made us cold. Now that the rain stopped, we can go home. Why don't you come to my place?
夜中に女の子部屋に入れたりして大丈夫なの？
If it's you, Hikari, I'm sure it'll be fine. Though it would probably upset Miss Miharu. But I
で
think
も無理すればまだ帰れるかな？
you don't have to rush. You can just stay in my room. I held her hand, so Hikari looked up at me curiously. I want to be with you until morning.
おお、そうだね。うん、そうしよう。
With her face flushed red, Hikari agreed to my suggestion. Hikari, Hikari. And with that, why don't we stop here? That just seems to be a good point. We got through the confession being returned. Quite an eventful video in terms of the relationship. It truly was a very powerful one, and I was struggling emotionally with it for a while there. I'm sure I sounded choked up a couple of times as I was reading. It just was such a really, really good love story there. Anyway, that's going to be it for this video. We'll continue on with the story after this. There's a great deal more science to go, I believe. And so we'll have to come back and see what all comes to fruition here at the end. So, for www.notthetimcurrystudios.com, I'm 2Athemar7 saying sayonara.